Good morning. Welcome. Nice to see you. I hope today is a good day for you, and that you have a sense of achievement at the end of it. And perhaps you have something that's in your mind that you're going to be doing today. Well, we're looking at Luke chapter 20, and the first little bit of chapter 21, we're starting at verse 27, and we're looking at just a basic thought expressed in two or three different ways, and that is how important to the Lord Jesus motives are. The thinking behind what you do, why you do what you do, is so important. Many people judge by what they see done. But if the motive is wrong, even a really good thing is not as good as it looked. And these little incidents seem to me to underline this. And the first is these Sadducees who came to Jesus with a question about the resurrection. Now that seems very sensible. After all, we all want to know what the next life is going to be like, and there are sometimes questions in our mind. Will we have our mansion near to our family, or near to our spouse or our children? What will it be like? What will relationships be like in the resurrection? But the strange thing about this was that the Sadducees was a sect within the Jewish faith, and they did not believe in the resurrection. So they were asking a question about something they didn't believe in, which is very interesting. And Jesus knew that they didn't believe in it, but he answered them straightforwardly, just as if they believed in it. And by the end of the conversation about the resurrection, about this poor woman who was married to 7 brothers and then died, who was she going to belong to in the resurrection? And the answer to that is she's not. She's going to be her own person. She's going to be free from all the trappings of this world, and the wrongs that were done in her life are going to be righted, just as they will be for the men. The resurrection is not a male province, fortunately. Anyway, so by the end of this, the scribes say to Jesus, and of course the scribes were not the Sadducees. The scribes were also listening in, and they said, "Teacher, you've spoken well." But you can remember it like this. The Pharisees believed in the resurrection, and the Sadducees were sad, you see, because they didn't. Sorry, it's a way to remember it. We make up ways to remember it. But their motive was not genuine inquiry about how things were going to be. It was not a genuine question. It was simply that they wanted to trip him up, because they knew lots of people believed in the resurrection. Life on this earth is so precarious, and people die young and die of awful things and die suddenly. And if there's no hope of resurrection, and what are we living our lives for, they might ask. And it says in verse 40, they no longer dared to ask him any question. They had realized when they tried the one on about the taxes to Caesar, and this about the resurrection, that he was very clever. He was, to their mind, unlearned. He'd not trained in the educational establishments of the day. He'd not learned at any rabbi's feet. He knew things. But he spontaneously goes on to ask them to think about something, and think about the promise that the Messiah was to be a descendant of David. And he sets them a question to think about. He doesn't answer it, but he sets them a question to think about, because he wants them to become genuine in their thinking about him. And then he says, of the very people who had commended him just a little bit before, he says, "Beware of the scribes who like to go about in long robes and love salutations in the marketplace and the best seats in the synagogues." These scribes, they they admired his thinking, but they went about attracting attention to themselves. They loved to be noticed, to be seen for who they were. They were the educated class. They were the ones who could read and write. They were a cut above everybody. And they were important people. And they liked people to realize how important they were and to honor them and to bow and scrape. And they didn't care what happened to the widows they encountered. And they made long prayers so that everybody could see just how holy they were. Jesus didn't like their motivation. Their motivation was not genuine. Their motivation was self-importance and selfishness. And then we go into chapter 21, and there's the widow who puts 2 little coins into the treasury. And Jesus says, this poor widow has put in more than everyone else. And all the rest, the rich, were putting in gifts out of their plenty. And she was giving a very small amount out of her lack. And again, it's about motive. It's about motive. She didn't do that to be noticed. She didn't do that because she knew there was nobody who would say, gosh, did you see how much that widow put in? She put a huge amount in. Well, she didn't. She put a tiny amount in. But her reason for doing it was because even though she had very little, she wanted to contribute to the Lord's work in the treasury of the temple. And the rich put their gifts in and they made a flamboyant thing of doing it. You know, they made a, you know, when I was growing up, there was someone in my church who would never put a note into the collection bag. We had a collection bag that was carried, you know, like the one we have at Monk's Yard. This person would always make sure they had plenty of change, and they would put a lot of coins in, so it made a lot of noise. And the coins amounted to less than one note would have amounted to. But they wanted people to realise that they were putting their money in as the bag went past them. It's all about motive. So today perhaps is a day to think, what are my motives for the things that I do for the Lord and the things that I do in this world? Why do I do the things that I do? What is my motive? Is it self-aggrandizement? Is it to attract attention to me so people will know just how wonderful I am? Or is it because I genuinely feel the Lord wants me to do it, or I just want to be a blessing to someone else? Have a look at your motives today. It's a bit of a deep question, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.